Do you want to give your premium 3D prints an exclusive price upgrade and finally stand out from the massive competition on the market? Then you need to create something truly special today. And that is exactly what I have done for both of us. As usual, I am providing you with the models, including a commercial license, so you can start making real money with just a single purchase. But to help you stand out even further from the crowd, I have optimized these models not only for 3D printers, but also for CNC machines. This allows you to produce them entirely out of precious wood, or as seen here, in a sophisticated combination of wood and 3D printing, to ensure you can scale your home business perfectly. There is one small detail to keep in mind when comparing the 3D printer and the CNC mill for this model. For these projects, I use strong neodymium magnets. In the slicer, I set a pause at the desired position, specifically exactly one layer before the opening closes. I just right-click and insert a pause in the sliced preview. By the way, I highly recommend putting a small drop of super glue into the hole before inserting the magnet. I've had instances where the magnet was actually pulled out of the hole by the print head. After the pause, the printer simply prints over the magnets. This way they are completely hidden, but still do their job perfectly. With a CNC milling machine, I don't need to, and actually can't, put a layer over the magnets. That's why I simply mill out these pockets. The tolerances for the magnets are slightly tighter here than in the 3D printed model. The first larger model is finished, but there were a few minor issues. There was a bit of play in the connections. Due to the heavy weight, the upper shelf is slightly warped, causing it to occasionally touch the lower box. This creates a loud noise when sliding. You can see the contact between the two shelves right here. Secondly, I found a very similar box online and realized that publishing my version might infringe on a design patent. That's why I decided to delete this project and start a completely new one where both of these problems are solved. For the wood, I chose lighter tones today, specifically oak and beech. I loaded the wood into my CNC mill, the Carvera Air by Makera. In my last milling video, I went into more detail about this machine and showed how beginner friendly it is and why I love the software so much compared to something like Fusion. When programming, I usually try to do everything with a single tool. For this task, I used a new 6mm 2-flute end mill with a 22mm length. My wood has a thickness of 18mm. By the way, the tool change here is extremely fast, and the probe for zeroing the Z-axis is hardwired to the machine, so it's always ready to go. No more errors with the Z-axis. There will be more videos coming where I combine milling machines and lasers with 3D printing. This will allow you to decide whether you want to just print the models or combine them with wood for a more premium look and a higher resale price. The new models had to be printed again. My 3D printers have been running non-stop for weeks, and both have already clocked over 1,000 hours, even though they aren't that old yet. I use Bambu Lab Matte PLA, and I highly recommend using Matte PLA for any models you intend to sell. If you want to position your products in the premium segment, don't use cheap filament. Use matte material so it doesn't look like cheap plastic. When combined with wood, it looks truly high-end. There are 3 versions of my model in total. You can combine them so that the project is either entirely made of wood or just the inner box or the upper shelf. For the wooden parts, I personally recommend a smooth lower box, which requires a milling cutter at least 50mm long. The pin is pushed in with a bit of pressure. If your printer isn't quite as precise, you can gently tap it in with a rubber mallet until you feel the resistance. In addition to the magnets, a very important connector piece goes into the upper part. All individual parts are listed in the PDF included with the purchase of the model. I did my first test run using only filament before moving on to the wood. That's the advantage of having both technologies at your disposal. Although the milling process is much faster than 3D printing, the wood and the cutters cost more than cheap filament. That's why all my models had to pass this test before I committed to the expensive wood. The box with the heart is a perfect gift for a girlfriend on Valentine's Day, and it will likely be a bestseller this time of year. Vacuum on and safety cover down. This is a major advantage of the Carvera Air that you almost never find in this price range. It has a full enclosure. Without it, the workspace would constantly be covered in wood chips and dust. On the back there are 3 holes, 2 for the magnets and the middle one for the connector that enables the sliding motion and keeps the upper plate at the right distance. Now for the contour. I've added some tabs in the contour settings and I'm letting the machine mill 0.5mm into the wasteboard to ensure it cuts all the way through. Now I'll take the wood plate off and check if it's cut through everywhere. Perfect. I set the tabs manually in the Makera software, so they aren't right on the edge, as I need to remove them now with a multi-tool. A small saw would also work if you don't own a multi-tool. What you learn as a maker in this field is that there's always a way to reach your goal. This is what it looks like now. Small remains of the tabs still need to be sanded down. I use a fine sanding sponge for this to make sure the sides are nice and smooth. The bottom side is finished. Now for the other side, even though I accidentally started clamping it the wrong way around at first, I noticed it just in time. The probe gets the Z0 point for me. With my older milling machines, I always use the paper method, which obviously takes a lot of time. So this is a real luxury for me now. Now for the milling process. The noise level is quite high, of course. Even though the cover dampens the sound a bit, this isn't a machine you'd want in your bedroom. Since the machine works so reliably with the Z probe and the automatic homing after each project, I had no problem leaving the room for a moment. I think anyone who has worked with CNC mills and programmed the paths themselves has probably crashed a cutter into something it didn't belong at some point. On the second model, I turned the vacuum on way too late, but that's fine. A few chips don't really hurt the milling process. I'll vacuum the chips, and now for the best part, testing the wooden products with my 3D prints. Wood is heavier than filament, so I was very curious about this. Now let's set the magnets. They fit very well and the holes aren't too large. Here is an important tip if you've never worked with magnets. Because of the different poles, magnets attract on one side and repel on the other. It is extremely important that you insert the magnets the right way around. This applies to the 3D print as well. Here's how I do it. I take my model and place the magnets on top. You can use a marker to put small dots on them to show which side is up or down. Then a drop of super glue. Since the shelf is flipped over in the finished state, I have to flip the magnets for the box once before gluing them in. So flip the magnet and into the hole with the glue. I do this for both magnets. It is especially important that the magnets in the lower box are all facing the same direction so the pull is consistent. The best way is to hold a stack of magnets and slide them off one by one from the top. Next up, the box of love with a heart design. I personally love the color choice on this one. We're building this box with magnets and wood as well, so we can really see the comparison between the materials. The magnets on the lower box are connected to their counterparts. First, I put a drop of super glue into the milled holes in the wood. Then comes a crucial step. The magnets must be flipped once because the wooden shelf is lying upside down during the gluing process. Then, just wait a moment for the glue to cure. Now place the pin onto the connector piece and there we go. Everything fits perfectly. The shelf slides over the box effortlessly and the whole thing looks incredibly cool. It's a real eye-catcher for any office and the sliding function is so relaxing, almost like a fidget spinner. Let's get straight to the material costs. But first I want to know what you think. Which of the 3 boxes do you think turned out best? Also let me know if you prefer the pure 3D print or the combination with wood. One more important thing, by purchasing this file, you're directly supporting my channel. In return, I'm providing you with a commercial license so you're allowed to sell the physical boxes you produce. I'm displaying the material cost for you here. Keep in mind, I ordered a lot of the parts on Amazon. It's a bit more expensive that way, but the shipping is much faster. I got the filament from Bambu Lab at about a 50% discount. Electricity and other overhead costs are not included. These are just the raw material costs in Germany. To everyone who watched until the end, write the word Glücksbringer in the comments. Let's see who made it all the way through. See you next time. Bye.